Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Well, the Academy of Community Radio has invited us back for a second week. This is an audience of one with Andrew and Dick, or as Dick likes to call it, shower thoughts.
Yeah. Personal shower thoughts.
So, full disclosure here to the audience, we did have our first radio spat off the air. He's desperately trying to change the name of the show to Shower Thoughts.
No.
No?
Names don't matter to me.
Okay. Well, just in case you did, I actually have a shower thought for you.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe not in the sense that you think of. But I traveled for work last week. I went to Colorado. You ever been to Colorado?
Yeah. My brother used to live there. He used to be a rancher up there.
Oh, it's nice. I think there's a certain percentage of Texans that are just kind of obsessed with Colorado. I think it might be the mountains, obviously, and the snow, the weather, and it's Western, but it's not quite California, right? So you don't have to make that full West Coast commitment.
I mean, is it the closest state that has consistent snow for skiing besides New Mexico? Because New Mexico's kind of iffy.
Yeah,
with
you have to be in the
snow.
northern part. I don't know. I just feel like Texans have this thing for Colorado. I know when I was younger, I kind of did. I wanted to go to college there, loved it. But anyways, I traveled to Colorado, and I stayed at a hotel, as one will do. Yeah. When they're traveling.
Oh, you don't do the Airbnb where you randomly stay at some dude's house?
No, this was a work trip, so they've got that all planned out.
Okay.
You ever stayed at a hotel before, Dick?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's important for this story too, I think. And I stayed at a hotel that wasn't particularly nice, but it wasn't trash either. So it was
like
kind
Quality Inn or something?
Well, I'm not going to name any names, but it was just sort of middle of the road. And one of the first things I noticed though was the shower situation. Most hotels now, they've got like walk-in showers with like a glass enclosure.
Oh, what kind of hotel is that? I've always stayed at the ones that, they have years of caked skin on the ground. And
no, well, then this might be one that you're familiar with. This one had the old school tub, with the shower curtain, and with the rod that basically goes straight. In fact, the rod didn't go straight across; it was kind of bowed out for whatever reason. But the first thing I noticed was the shower curtain was not really made of a material that was probably supposed to get wet. Okay. So I thought,
so it's
that's
missing
strange.
the liner.
Exactly. And I noticed right in the middle of the curtain, it had these snaps where you could probably put a liner in. Okay. But apparently that was an expense this place was just not willing to burden.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, okay, what's the play here? Do I leave the curtain out of the tub and just have water go all over the bathroom floor? Or do I tuck it into the shower like a liner would, even though it's made of a material that's...
Like a cloth?
Yeah, it was like a polyester blend of some sort. I didn't know what the play was there.
You just call them.
Wait, call the front desk, ask them what I'm supposed to do with a shower curtain?
Well, like, hey, do you have a liner? This one doesn't have a liner.
Yeah, I guess I could have. I didn't do that, though.
Yeah, they always do that. Because there's times when I've been to a hotel or a motel and they don't have any toilet paper. It's because they just forgot to put it on the ring or whatever. And you're like, okay, well...
I think in that case, I'm calling for toilet paper. I don't know that I'm going to call about a shower curtain or liner.
I would, just because you don't want to screw it all up. Especially if you're how long were you staying there?
2 nights. 3 days, 2 nights.
Yeah, or you could just be a mean person, just not call and just get water everywhere. And
see, that's what I'm saying. So what would you have done in my spot, in my position? What would you have done?
I would call.
Okay, let's assume that you can't call. Let's say you called and they said, no, we're out of liners. Again, this is not an expense we're willing to.
If you're asking if I would have tucked it in or, I mean, to be honest, I probably, depending on how many towels they give you, because that's always been another issue with certain motels where like, oh, we only give you 1 towel a day per person staying there or something. I've literally had that conversation. And so I probably would have just tucked it in and just gone with it. Like, not my fault.
Right. Well, that's what I did. I did the tuck. And I felt a little bad because it was not really meant to get wet. But at the same time, otherwise, I'm just going to drown that thing. Yeah. I'm on the second floor. You don't want to risk leaks or anything. But so I wasn't sure exactly what to do, but I tucked it in.
Yeah, or take a bath.
Oh no, I don't know that I would take a bath in a hotel.
Oh, no,
I don't think that they clean those things well enough to take a bath in. That's kind of gross.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, you go to the good ones that have it's been used so much you can see like the layers of things that have been caked in.
So nasty.
But
so nasty. Well, that was my actual shower thought. I thought you'd be pleased that I would bring that to air.
I like it because one of my favorite things about going to those motels is there's always something up. Like, oh, the pressure's really bad, or they clearly had a maintenance guy that replaced one of the shower heads with like, a incompatible shower head, so it leaks from behind it. And then you ever been to the motels where they had the old school dry cleaning lines in the shower?
No, I don't think I have.
You ever seen that? Like, it's like a little silver hole, and it had like you pull a piece of wire across and it hooks so where you can dry your clothes.
No, I understand conceptually what you're saying, but I don't think I've ever seen one of those at a hotel.
But like, you have those, but then they remove them, but they don't remove them completely. So you have this bare hole.
I would think something is up if I saw a hole like that in the shower. That's odd.
Yeah.
The only clotheslines I remember are the ones when I was a kid playing in the backyard, and those things would clothesline.
Yeah, well, it's the same idea. It's
playing football and someone loses a head. Oh my gosh.
But I think they got rid of them because people kill themselves or something. I don't really know.
Oh,
but that's
think about that. Is that urban legend?
Well, I mean, I don't know why else would you get rid of them.
Well, because most people aren't. Well,
people would. I imagine they would if they wanted to dry their clothes or something. I don't know. But yeah, usually when you go into those bathrooms, there's always something up.
Well, what was up in this case is I had no liner, so.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me though, because I mean, think about the extra effort they have to put into that.
And I guess the cost too.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, this wasn't necessarily a super nice hotel. It wasn't terrible either, but.
Do you think hotel staying is one of those absent-minded things we have to force ourselves into because of exactly this hotel's been here for a long time? And like, don't you get a little worried if you find someone's pair of socks or something like that? You're like, do they clean this room? Is this like we don't even know. I found some other people's stuff. So
yeah, you're always a little suspect if you find the previous person. Oh, I hate it when you open up the refrigerator and you'll find like a sandwich that was left over from before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, okay,
that's nasty.
So clearly someone else has stayed in this room, but you should know that. Cause
you do kind of have to put yourself in a mindset that I'm the only one who's ever stayed here before. Yeah. Because if you think about all the hundreds of thousands of people, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands of people.
It depends on how old the hotel is.
Yeah, it's just kind of gross. Yeah. So, anyways.
But you're back. You're safe.
I am back. It's safe. When I got there, it was like 40 degrees. By the time I left, it was 2. Snowed practically the entire time I was there. Yeah, it was nice, but made for some interesting driving around too. Anyways, well, I thought we'd start off this week with a few stories of people kind of doing some bad things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Using a shower liner, not using a shower liner is one of those things.
Well, you just said you would have done the same thing I did.
Yeah, I'm
How's
a bad person.
Oh, okay, that's true. That's true. No, this story that I kind of caught my eye this week, there's not a lot here, but this is a story about a man named Jose Luis Diaz. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the other name that was in there, but Jose Luis Diaz. And he attempted to escape from Conchocorro. You like the way I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a maximum security prison in Bolivia. And you would probably say, okay, well, probably lots of people make attempts at escaping a prison in Bolivia. But he did it in a fairly interesting way. And it made me laugh. He wrapped himself up in sheepskin and crawled through the grasslands surrounding the jail.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it says this inmate, also known as El Araña, used his fleece coat to sneak past security. So apparently it was good enough to sneak past security and break through one of the prison's external walls. I don't know if you can pull that up.
Yeah, I'm going to show the audience right now.
This is what made me laugh.
They're seeing it. That's him on the ground. I guess that's when they caught him.
Yeah, it's so funny because, it looks like just a cheap coat that you would have, purchased at, I don't know, Walmart or something like that.
No, I mean, there's a picture right here.
Well, I think that one is probably after he had crawled.
Yeah, but that looks like an actual sheepskin.
Yeah, it does. But that first picture with him crawling when it's on his back, it does appear to look coat-like. I'm not sure. Where do you get a sheepskin? Who's sneaking in a sheepskin into your prison?
Well, I mean, you're in Bolivia, right?
I guess they got him wandering around. I don't know.
That's probably what his concept was. It was like, hey, there's sheep everywhere around the jail. I could probably sneak out.
It did say grassland surrounding, so maybe there were sheep around and he thought I'd blend in. Oh, I don't know. When I saw that, I had to laugh out loud.
Well, you also think about the desperation of people breaking out of jail, and it's like, what can really be successful and what isn't? Because I imagine there's probably more successes out there that we know of or we don't know of because they don't want to report like people are.
Oh, true. I didn't
jail.
think about that. Yeah.
Because you always have those cool movies where they break out of prison.
Well, yeah. So how would you break out if you were an inmate?
Well, it depends on.
How do you think you would break out? Do you think you would go like El Chapo,
dig a tunnel,
Count of Monte Cristo style, and dig a tunnel, or would you go sheepskin?
I mean, I think it's also where you're in prison because El Chapo had the money.
Well, he had probably other people digging
to
holes
all the
for
bribery,
him, right?
the bribing and things. But this guy, I bet you, this guy saw that there was a sheep herder that travels around, and he's like, okay, so we know there's sheep. If I just get a sheepskin and I just get out the walls.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? And yeah, I mean, I think that's ingenious. I think that's something.
Well, it's not too ingenious. He did get caught, but he did make it past the first level of security, apparently, with that awesome disguise of his.
Or probably someone ratted on him. No.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. No, I don't know how I would escape. Wasn't there a guy, an escaped convict here in Conroe?
Oh, he killed people
about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, he killed a family.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, he escaped like at 105 at the McDonald's right here at 105 and 45, right? I didn't realize that he had killed anyone.
Well, it might be a different. I know.
I don't think this. No. I know.
Because there was a story that Huntsville. If people don't know, Huntsville has a huge Texas state penitentiary.
I know the story you're talking about. That's not what I'm.
And he escaped. I don't know how. I think he actually like forced his escape.
Yeah.
And then he was on the run for several times, and he hid in the family's house and he killed the family and.
No, this guy. They were transporting some prisoners from some other location, and they stopped at McDonald's for lunch.
I can see that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they were actually feeding the inmates lunch. It's been a few years. Or if just the driver said, I need to hit something up from the dollar menu. I need to get me some nugs or something. I don't know. But apparently the guy decided to make a run for it then. I remember this. It was right here on 105.
Yeah.
I don't think he went very far. But that probably would be the way I would do it. I would wait to transport time.
Yeah.
And then just wait for the hunger pangs to kick in. They pull over, and I'm going to make a run for it. I was going to do sheepskin, but when I saw this guy got caught, I went, well, I got to go to plan B.
Well, if you look at actual prison breaks compared to the movies, the actual ones, there is a thought, like there's thought process into it. It's not just one day like, oh, the guard's looking the other way, I can go through this door. But I imagine that there's some of them are that simple, where it's just like...
Well, this one is pretty simple.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, he just got unlucky because one guard would happen to be there and see, like, what's that sheep with legs doing, with human legs doing out there?
And maybe this is what was afforded to him, right? Like, this is the resources that he had available to him at that time.
Yeah, you're in Bolivia, dude.
Yeah. Sheepskin all over, I guess,
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, one thing I do want to let the audience know, I'm recovering from a cold. So if I sound different than our last show, that is why.
Yeah, I was worried about you. It was a little touch and go there for a while.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm a real weakling when it comes to getting colds. I'm like, I can't even move. But also, it's really bad for radio to have a cold because you really don't want to be infectious in an area where people are coming and talking. So I was out for a couple of days. I was like, I'm just not going to chance it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad you're better now.
Yeah. I'm at the end of the race where I'm no fever, nothing, but I just sound like crap.
To be honest, I don't think you sound that much. It's a little stuffy.
I feel it.
But
so.
Okay. Well, there's enough distance in between you and I. We're socially distanced here. Yeah. I think we're all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think last week, continuing on our theme of people doing bad things, last week I mentioned to you off air if this scenario had ever unfolded to you, and you said that it had not. And it kind of surprised me, actually. I thought it was fairly common around here. And what I'm referring to is the grocery store or shopping center violin player. Yeah, and this doesn't even ring a bell with you, which surprised me. So this probably a couple of years ago, maybe right after the pandemic, I guess. So maybe a year and a half ago, I first experienced this. And it's one of these things where I pull up to the grocery store They're in the Woodlands, and the second I open my car door, I'm just greeted with very loud violin music, and it's good. It's got a backtrack and some beat to it, and what the first thing that struck me was it was not classic violin music as much as it was pop songs. Right, so you had like Bruno Mars or something, and you're like, hey, I recognize that song, and it's beautiful. Like, it sounded great. And I thought, wow, that's enough for me to kind of stop and look, go in, get my groceries, and come back out, and they're playing Ed Sheeran. I'm like, man, this is great. A few days later, I got to go to the grocery store again. I'll be darned. There's a guy still playing. In fact, it's a different guy. And I get out, man, he's playing the same type of song, pop music. I'm like, man, that's strange. Week later, I have to go to the grocery store. I go to a different location, and what do you know? There's a violin player, and they're playing the exact same music, and it all sounds kind of the same. And I thought, wait a minute, something is not right here. And so I looked it up, and the only reason I bring this up is because I ran across one of these people just last week, and I went, oh man, I hadn't seen one of these in a while. So I looked it up, and apparently this is not new. This has been a phenomenon that's been sweeping across the United States, and it kind of made its way into Texas a few years ago. Police are calling this a nationwide emergency involving violins.
I believe it.
Which is hilarious. So what this is, apparently, these are scammers. And they're posing as people that are actually playing the violin, but they ain't playing the violin. It's all recorded.
All right.
And they're getting out there and they're playing. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll turn their back, so you can't quite see their fingers or whatever. And in this case of this one woman that I saw at Kroger, she was dancing. And she'd dance and dance and dance, and you couldn't ever really get a beat on whether or not, she was actually playing. Well, they're just scammers. And of course, they're all begging for money. They've got signs out, donate this, that, and the other. So I thought it was interesting that you'd never run into this.
Yeah, I think it's the evolution of the scam artist.
Well, yeah, maybe so. I wasn't that offended by it. Okay, I found out they're fake. It made sense, but it was at least pleasant. I mean, if you're just going to hold a sign out there that says, give me money, yeah, it's disingenuous, but at least there's some good music. It was really
I guess.
pretty.
I don't know how Kroger feels about it.
Yeah, well, the first time I saw it, this person was right up by the door. And then the next time, they were a considerable distance away, like almost kind of at the edge of the parking lot.
Yeah.
I bet you Kroger said, you need to get away from be X number of feet away from the front door.
I can't believe they let them stay there at all. But I guess there's some rules or something like that.
Yeah, I guess if you get far enough away. I think what the funniest part about this is apparently that real violinists, real musicians have gotten pretty upset about this.
Oh, great.
And apparently there's some videos online of violinists that are confronting these people.
Yeah.
And they're so offended by it, They're like, "Oh, I can't believe that you're out here faking it, bro." And my thought is, yeah, I can see that. But then if it's that offensive, why don't you just grab your violin and go play yourself then and show them up?
Yeah, I mean, it's also one of those things, how many people will actually stop by and interact with this? Because if it was me, I wouldn't pay any attention to it.
Yeah, I kept walking, but I walked slowly so I could absorb a little bit of the music. But yeah, I don't care. But I also don't play the violin. If I was a concert violinist, or maybe not even just someone who played, I might be a little more interested to go, oh, wow, this guy's pretty good. And when you walk over, you go, wait a minute, your fingers aren't even, you're not even barely, you're not moving the bow in the proper way.
Yeah, but you're also not, you're probably not one of those people who immediately go up and give money to somebody. Because have you ever been to like New Orleans or, I mean, I think Houston has a law that you can't do street tricks or anything like that. But I know like on, what is that main street in New Orleans? It starts with a B.
Oh, Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street. There's a lot of street performers doing different things.
Yes.
And it's very similar to this kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm doing this, entertaining thing. Give me money. And I don't really like interacting with that. I'm not all about that.
I'm just wondering if this is against the law because this says the police were warning about it. I'm thinking, well, there's beggars all the time. That's essentially what they were. What's the difference in fact that they're just being disingenuous? And so I was wondering if this was against the law or not.
Well, do you compare this the same as the folks who get in a wheelchair and pretend to have like missing legs, and then all of a sudden you see them get in a car or something like.
Yeah, I think it's its first cousin. Honestly, they're related. This one just I get more enjoyment out of. The other one hits you in a different way. Oh, it's supposed to elicit some sort of sadness. This was like, wow, this person's really great, but apparently not. So apparently they have a name. Though.
I wonder why a violin though.
Well, that's true. Yeah, how did they decide?
I guess
on a
that's
violin?
the easiest instrument you can do to fake.
Well, I bet you the
if it was-
percentage of people in the population that play violin is probably fairly small, and so they
Yeah.
can get away with it easier than guitar, maybe.
Yeah, guitar. I bet people can tell really fast.
Really quick. Yeah. So apparently this has a name. It's called finger syncing.
I like it.
Yeah, I'll let you take that where you want. But
I like
finger
that.
syncing, a term. It's a play on the term lip syncing, obviously, but
Why don't you just get out there with your air guitar, dude? Get some money.
it's kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
right? At least I guess in that case you're not really tricking anyone.
I mean, you don't know if they're really playing the guitar in their mind.
Oh, that's true, and it's probably beautiful too.
Yeah, probably these violin people think they're really playing the violin.
Well, this last guy that I saw, I guess it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago now, he was actually playing. And the reason I know he was playing is because he was not exactly in sync with the track behind him.
Yeah.
So I think he was trying to pull it off like, look, I can kind of play, and he was off slightly, and I'm like, oh. So maybe he was trying to do the real deal. I don't know. But it didn't sound nearly as good as some of the other ones I'd heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ingenious. I mean, it kind of, well, it's funny. This makes me, I think a couple weeks ago, Montgomery County, we're in Montgomery County in Texas, and there was a sheriff's report, because we get reports from the sheriff's department, kind of like recent news to tell people as the media, and one of them was the online scams through Facebook groups. And there's common language with it where it's like, oh, hey, my car broke down this weekend. I got to get to my job. Can anyone pick me up or pay for my Uber? And they have the system down where they link their Uber account and you can deposit money into it. And it's like the same language as always, where it's like if you try to offer to him a ride, it always end up being like, oh, I can't do that. I can't. I got 3 kids. I got to take them, so I don't want to put that on you to take them to the to the doctor and all this kind of stuff. Like, give me more money to fix my car instead of a ride. And so they put a warning out there. If you're on Facebook and you see people linking their Venmo account,
Seems suspicious to me. No,
Well-
just on face value, it just seems suspicious.
yeah, I like it though, because it's like, I wonder how much money they really get.
I mean, if you figure just 1 out of every 100 person that reads
Like,
it,
here's a
just-
dollar.
Yeah, here's a dollar. It
Yeah.
adds up. I guess if you just it's all in the numbers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
scamming's pretty great these days.
It's good money. You ever been approached like at a gas station when you're filling up and it's always a guy coming
Yeah.
in? Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
What is with that?
Well, I mean, with that, I'm trying to remember what the old scam was, where it was like, oh, hey, can I borrow $5? I need to go buy something, and then I'll pay you back.
Yeah.
Something. And I'm like, I don't really want to stick around here.
Yeah, and I have actually had a lady come up to me she was in a Lexus, and it was a newer model Lexus, asking for a few bucks for gas.
Yeah.
I thought, man, I don't feel comfortable with this. I just always tell them no.
Yeah.
No. Can't do it.
All right. Because you don't like helping people. It's all right.
That's it. But I did enjoy the violin music. Well,
Yeah.
we can change gears here a little bit. We can go one of 2 different ways.
Okay.
You want to go? We do a little celebrity roulette here. Do you want to go Bruce Willis, or do you want to go Alec Baldwin?
Well, I guess those are the 2 people.
That's our only
that
2 choices right now.
Yeah. I mean,
Both of them been in the news here recently. I figured. I know last week you mentioned Alec Baldwin. I know you said you've followed a little bit on that story.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about it, so I know you want to talk about that. And then Bruce Willis made news this week too, so we can go one of which one. Eeny meeny. It's up to
well,
you.
I mean, the Bruce Willis story, if people don't know, he was diagnosed with dementia, and they made the public announcement of it because, what was it, about a year ago, they announced he had some type of cognitive disease where he couldn't remember his lines. And
Aphasia.
Aphasia, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's
and
what
then,
I'm reading here. They announced it last spring.
And then now he has dementia, and I'm thinking to myself, why are they letting us know this? To the point, because usually they do an announcement like that because he has a movie coming out, and it's kind of like, oh, hey, just to let you know, this is what's going on. There might be some issues with production, that kind of thing.
Right.
But now we're getting to the point where with him, it's like, why do we care? Even though it's like sad, but it's like, what are they trying to protect? Did he do something wrong? And they're going to come out with this, Me Too kind of stuff, where he's like, oh, don't worry, that's when he had dementia. You understand what I'm saying?
I know.
Where I'm going with
absolutely.
this? I think it's kind of strange that they want the public to know he has dementia. Where they already.
I think it's because he's a public figure. And,
is he?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, he's been in tons of movies.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's not going out and about and doing stuff. He's not on Twitter, not on, TikTok doing stuff, and then all of a sudden he disappears.
Well, I think it's interesting. A few months ago, there was the story that he had sold his likeness to an AI company.
See, I can see that.
And I thought, wow, this is brilliant. His health is declining.
Yeah.
And so he's going to get ahead of this for not only himself but his family and generations behind it. I'm going to sell my likeness. It was to a company, a deep fake company called Deepcake.
I like it.
That's an awesome name for a deep.
They ran out of names at the.
Yeah, allowing a company to create a digital twin for the actor who retired in March following his diagnosis of aphasia.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis has denied this, saying that's not true.
Probably doesn't even remember.
Well, I think his family would remember. But it is kind of an interesting concept if you think about it, selling your likeness to AI.
Well, people do it all the time.
What's they do it all the time?
Well, like they sell the rights to something very personal, like
A music catalog.
like
I've
a music.
heard that.
Yeah.
But
So
your
to
face,
me, that's not a big skip.
Well, I think it's more of this is where movies are going to go in the future potentially, and they're going to have AI actors.
Well, like what I would.
So, hey, why don't I cash in on having one of these actors be familiar to us, and we can make him look whatever age. Back to a story that we had last week, an age that he wants to be at. Make him look that age in perpetuity, and he can act forever.
Well, to me, it's all connected to like it's probably had a discussion with video games similar to that. Meaning, like, say you're a video game actor, and you're like, all right, well, I'm clearly 20 years later, but they're still making part 17, and they're using my person, my likeness to it. But, that person hasn't aged in the game. Because I remember a while back, there was a discussion between MGM and the people who, it was like, I think it was after GoldenEye, where they were trying to figure out, like, okay, so Pierce Brosnan was James Bond, but he stopped being James Bond, right? But they still wanted to make games with Pierce Brosnan's James Bond, like the model. Uh-huh. And I think there was something about that where, like, they go, okay, yeah, you can do it only for 2 years. Like, after, because they didn't want to ruin the James Bond image. Because if you think about it, they continue making video games with Pierce Brosnan's James Bond today. It would kind of confuse the audience in a way, like their branding. So they want to have control over that. But with the Bruce Willis thing, I mean, that's...
Well, it sounds like there's some kind of argument because they're saying that, of course, this is Russian advertisement, said that they had already used his likeness in a commercial last year.
I don't doubt it.
Yes.
But I think also if you're an actor, you kind of have to look at how to maximize your profit or your earnings.
Well, exactly. But he's denying it, which makes me wonder if he's just saying no, but he really has.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All this news about him is really weird.
It's weird.
It's really weird to me because it's like... Does he have a movie coming out? Because I would say for the past 10 years, his movies have been like C-rate movies, meaning they DVD straight to DVD, and he just collects a paycheck. So it's not like there's an industry relying on him to keep his brand, to keep him on the up and up.
Moonlighting was 40 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it happens all the time with actors. I mean, it's like.
Years ago.
If you start this franchise with this person, you're like, all right, we got to keep this clean. So if we want to do another Die Hard movie, but they're not going to do another Die Hard movie with him. Like that's not even in the works.
Yeah.
So
well, these deep fake digital twin things are interesting. Have you ever seen the Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
I fell
There's
for
a couple out there.
I fell for it. The first time I saw it, I wasn't paying attention. It probably came through my social media.
There's one
feed.
with Bill Gates.
Well, this one with Tom Cruise, it went kind of viral because it was this guy who kind of already looked a little bit like Tom Cruise, altered his face, has his mannerisms down.
Those are all over TikTok, right?
Yeah, I don't do TikTok, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Like, there's one guy who looks like Johnny Depp, so he mimics Q&As. So he's like on TikTok Live, and he looks like Jack Sparrow. Like he looks legit like Jack Sparrow.
Okay, I may have to check this out.
And he does cute, like people ask him questions, and he tries to play off that he's Johnny Depp.
Same thing. I mean, I fell for it because I wasn't necessarily paying attention, and I wasn't looking for it. But I see this video of Tom Cruise, and I wish I could remember specifically what it was, but I thought, it was a scenario that didn't quite make sense why he would be doing what he was doing.
There's one with Morgan Freeman.
And I thought, this is weird. And as it turns out, there's a whole series of them. And the more I watched them, the more ridiculous they were. He was kind of a caricature of himself. And I thought, this is weird. Why is Tom Cruise doing these videos? What are they? It turns out it was fake.
Yeah.
And just really scary. But I mean, if you don't know, or if you're like, say, if you're a political person,
I mean, that's out
they can
there,
put
man.
they can put words in your mouth and do whatever. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
I like it. Well, I mean, connecting to the Alec Baldwin story about actors and getting in trouble, this to me, this story is kind of remarkable because you kind of see the inner workings of the movie industry, where Alec Baldwin is a producer on a film, a Western film, and he also stars in it, which is, probably something he's doing because he can't either get big roles with big production companies, or this might be a passion project. Well, anyway, as the story goes on, unfortunately, a young woman was shot while filming, and it turned out to be that the gun was loaded. I don't believe the gun was loaded with an actual bullet. I think it was a certain type of bullet that the movie people make, and it's kind of like the Crow issue. Remember that with the Crow? He wasn't shot with a bullet. He was shot with a blank, but the way the blanks are prepared, that they had enough impact.
So those are. I think it's two separate things. So the Crow thing was the 1990s movie with Brandon Lee.
Yeah, Bruce
who was
Lee's
the son
son.
of Bruce Lee. It was a little bit different then. That actually was a blank, and if I remember this correctly, after you fire blanks, there can be some shrapnel left in the barrel of the gun after the blank fires. And what happened in the case of Brandon Lee was a shot was fired at him, and it took a piece of the previous shrapnel, and it acted as a bullet, essentially, and it entered him like at the same force that a bullet was.
So in this scenario with Alec Baldwin, it was an actual gun.
It was an actual gun,
so
live ammo.
And I think the gun handler on the side got prosecuted, and Alec
the set's armorer, Hannah Reed. I didn't know armorer was an actual thing.
Well,
that's a cool.
You have to imagine when it comes to making a movie, any size of a movie, there's so many protocols for everything.
Yeah.
And I think with this scenario is unfortunate, but then what happened recently is Alec Baldwin now has been charged.
He has
for involuntary manslaughter, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But as a producer's role, not as the person pulling the trigger.
Because it was his production company that
oversaw it. Because a lot of people got confused where it's like, oh, he was the one that pulled the trigger, but he's not at fault because he wasn't intending to do that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody believes that Alec Baldwin actually meant to kill anybody.
But
maybe there's somebody.
And I think that's why I like the story, because it's interesting enough where it's like, okay, so he was directly involved, but the reason he's getting charged is as a producer, not as the person who accidentally killed the person. But see, this is where I find it kind of weird with the industries. Now they're still making the movie.
Yeah, so it was on hold for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was announced that they're
going to restart.
They're putting it out there, and I'm thinking,
anybody going to want to see that?
That's what I'm saying. It's such a weird thing where it's like this movie wasn't going to be a big movie anyway.
Low budget, something like $8 million to make.
Yeah, and that's low budget in that world. So
extremely.
It's kind of weird. It's like, hey, do we cut our losses or do we want to try and make some money back? We could sell it to Amazon.
Well, so like in the case of The Crow, I remember I was in high school when that movie came out, and you know how young kids, middle school, junior high, and high school kids are. They're like, oh man, we got to go see that movie because the scene where Brandon Lee was shot, they left it in. They actually left the same scene in there. And I'm like, wow, and I don't know if that's actually the truth, but I remember that was a rumor going around that scene where he was shot was left in the movie for realism.
You know what's funny? Speaking of deepfakes and this kind of, remember when Paul Walker passed away? And they put him in the Fast and the Furious, I don't know, 7 or 8, and it was his brother, and they did like this deep fake. And it was really funny to me because it's like, once you do that, it's like, is that the end of that? Like, are they going to try to do it again?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't keep up with that series. I know there's some people who are crazy about that Fast
but you know what
I'm saying? Franchise.
But they legit had him in the movie. It was creepy.
That is weird.
And
I think one of the positive things that could come out of this whole Alec Baldwin thing, if indeed there is anything positive, is there's going to probably be increased safety mechanisms and protocols in place for not only just the actors, but probably also the people who are on set making the movies, directors and things like this. Because obviously in this case, mistakes were made.
Yeah.
I mean, why the heck was there a live gun there in the first place?
Well, it'd be interesting to see exactly in that industry. You're looking at oversight, but when you start setting regulations in the industry, it's going to cost more money for the small budget people. So if they just do a flat thing where like everyone has to follow this protocol, it's going to cost them at least $1 million in any movie that has guns in it. And that's why you see, I remember, I forgot what it was. I think it was like I was reading the production of Starship Troopers, and one of the arguments was if you remember that movie, do you remember that movie?
I don't believe I ever saw it.
Starship Troopers? Okay. Well, it's like an alien movie, right? Like they're in space. And one of the things they were thinking about doing is instead of having like live ammo guns, because the guns they have are actual guns and they make it look all spacey, but it shoots bullets. Okay. And then one of the things like, why do we just cut that out and just make it lasers? So that way we're not firing like actual weapons.
And I think that's a proposition that's been made, is to just eliminate guns altogether from movies and have something else. I don't know how well that's going to fly.
Well, it doesn't really fit well in a Western movie.
It doesn't fit well in most movies that involve guns.
Let's
be honest.
I mean, to me, it's like...
If you're going to have an action flick with guns, you kind of have to have the gun.
Yeah, the gun thing. Because like if you've seen John Wick, I imagine. And I want to say in that movie, there are certain points where they're not really firing weapons at all. Like they just put it in post.
Okay, there you go. With all the technology we have now,
now,
they can put it in post.
Yeah,
so they're basically then they're like finger pointing, going pew pew.
Well, like maybe for
and they had it in a real.
Well,
gun.
maybe for John Wick's character, those are real guns. But like the henchman who's over on the balcony shooting at him.
Yeah, that makes
that's not a real
sense.
gun. It's just him.
Holding
Point in case is if you've ever seen All Quiet on the Western Front, the newer one on Netflix. If you watch that movie, really, it's good. It's all right. But the thing that pissed me off the most about it is almost everyone shooting a gun has no recoil.
Oh yeah, you gotta have some realism.
And so like you're sitting there going like, man, you know how big those calibers were back then, it really threw me off. I was like, no one's getting any recoil on this. Do they even shoot guns on this during filming? Like, yeah, that's the first thing I noticed in that movie. I was like, oh.
I mean, obviously, I feel sorry for the family of the director that was killed. I mean, that's the most important thing. But I also do feel sorry for that young lady.
Oh, think about Alec Baldwin, dude.
He's got to feel terrible. Yeah, he killed somebody, right?
But I just
they got to feel terrible all the way around.
Well, again, to close it out, let's talk about him is like it's interesting that he wasn't charged as the person pulling the trigger, but he's still being charged as the producer. So clearly, there's laws.
There's probably deeper pockets in a production company.
Well, I
maybe?
wonder. Oh, I don't really. That's what I'm saying. I wish we had a lawyer that could explain that to me. It's just because there's the civil side of lawsuits, and then he's actually being charged for manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. So this isn't like the family's suing him. It was like kind of like the O.J. Simpson thing, where like he lost the civil court, but he didn't lose the actual going to jail court. So I think it's interesting. I wouldn't mind being explained, like, well, if he's the one that actually pulled the trigger, why isn't he at least in some trouble? And
I don't know.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, and I think it's even crazier that they're continuing on with the movie.
I know.
I think that's today.
I think in the case of The Crow, I believe that scene was at the very, very end of the movie, and so the movie was roughly complete. I don't know at what point in the process of this movie Rust.
I think what's different in this scenario was Brandon Lee was the star of the film.
Yes.
And so they're like, okay, we kind of already shot everything. We can still release it. But the problem with this Rust movie is Alec Baldwin was the star of the film, who was the one that did the shooting. It wasn't like just freak accident, like, because like I think it was when the newest Resident Evil movie came out, one of like the top end stunt drivers died. Freak accident. But they still made the movie.
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, making movies is kind of a dangerous thing, especially the more high action. And I think there are injuries.
And the Paul Walker movie, same thing with the Paul Walker movie.
Yeah, I think it's the nature in which this person was killed, with a gun, point blank. That, I think, is what changes it. If it had been someone who fell off the stage and happened to land and
that's what I'm saying.
A little different.
I think they should have just shut down the movie and just said, sorry,
we're
not
who's
going
to touch this thing?
That's what I'm saying. It's weird. It's probably China. But
they're behind everything.
Well, they'll buy it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably a good place for us to take a break here.
Yeah.
What do you think, man? Ran through a couple of things.
Yeah. there's a lot going on, and this is our second episode.
There is. And like I said, the reaction after the first episode was overwhelming. I got hundreds, if not thousands, of emails, well wishes. People just basically telling me, thank you for doing the show.
The shower thoughts and
right.
what to do when you go to a motel. That's the information people need to know.
It's true. All right, Audience One, we'll be back.
With a little fame, a little change in the household name, but ain't too much change. We in the game, yo, but not to be vain.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
The brain. I'm labor ready, roll scholar for the dollar. Work for mines, pay me by the hour.
We're not falling, we take it back to the days.
Welcome back to Audience of One with Andrew and Dick. Episode number 2.
Yeah.
Haven't kicked us out yet. I keep looking over my shoulder waiting for security to come in and drag me out by my collar.
Well, we're not live, so we're recording.
Yeah.
So I have the mute button right here.
Okay, that's good. We'll keep it
Andrew's
handy.
off his meds.
keep it handy.
He's going Kanye on me.
Yeah, keep
Or
looking over my shoulder.
Or yee.
Yeah, ye. Yeah, man, that might be a segment or a show in and of itself. That guy. I don't have anything on him, but at this moment, but that could probably be a show.
He needs to get his face digitally done.
He needs to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
Frontal lobotomy. Poor guy. I mean, in a way, I kind of feel sorry for him too. But this again, sort of the bed he has made.
It's whatever. It just reminds me though. It's like that kind of guy, Kanye West. He reminds me of those certain people in the world today. It's like I would love to get a tell-all book from like The Assistant.
Yeah,
like
the people who knows the
interaction
inside
of
craziness of that guy.
And not necessarily like a family member. I'm talking about just the assistants. Like this guy was crazy to work for. Let me tell you how this worked.
I'm sure they're out there.
And,
I wonder if they sign non-disclosures though for a certain length of time, and when those are up, that's when you get all the good stuff.
Yeah, because it's something where they deal with every little aspect of their life. They might see them in their most vulnerable spots. They might see them, when they're doing the cool meeting celebrity spots, and then it's just kind of the wear and tear of humanity on yourself because you're human, and you're like, do I really have to work for this guy 365 days a year? They're so demanding. I always wondered, like, if you're Donald Trump's assistant or Joe Biden's assistant, like, they probably go, these guys are just crazy.
Oh, well, yeah, I would assume that you got to be half nuts to want that job to begin with. But no, I think being an assistant to a celebrity,
it's got to be something. Well, it's kind of like I watched that movie for the first time, Devil Wears Prada. And as I was watching it with my wife loves that movie and the book or whatever. And I go, I don't really get this. It's like this lady's doing the typical sacrificing her life to get basically a referral from what I'm understanding. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I have not.
So it's based off the fashion world. And the main character is she wants to be a journalist or a writer.
Okay.
And so she's trying to look for a job to be an assistant at like some newspaper or magazines, and she happens to get a job with this Vogue type fashion magazine. And I guess Meryl Streep's character is based off the CEO of Vogue, and she's very demanding, she's heart of ice. And like at one point I was like, if anyone treated me that way, and like, well, for example, to set up a scenario, she wanted the main characters to get the manuscript to the next Harry Potter book, which hasn't been published. And I'm like, who really thinks to themselves, yeah, I'm going to do that?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of wild. But anyway, let's go back on track here.
Yeah, you were taking a tangent.
Well, no, it's just funny. The assistant world is funny to me because you're an assistant to somebody. So it's like, how much time do you really take out of your own life to be an assistant, especially in the celebrity world?
True.
So,
well, we did have a pretty big event happen here.
There are a lot of celebrities at the Super Bowl, dude.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big event that just went on. I'm assuming you watched at least some of it.
I was working at the bowling alley, so I did see certain aspects of it. Like I saw a little bit of the halftime show. I didn't hear any of it. I didn't really hear anything. There was a moment where I thought the Eagles were going to win, and then I went and did something, and I come back and the game's over, and I'm like, how did the game end? So I looked it up. I was like, oof, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, I think the outside of the game, which was a pretty good game in and of itself.
Yeah.
The big news was the halftime performance.
Yeah.
And in which case Rihanna performed like we discussed last week.
And was her performance the general like best of Rihanna?
Well, I think that is typically what they try to do, and they being any artist that performs at the halftime show, they tries to get their
It's like a mixtape of their best.
right, yeah. They say they've got 10 number one hits. They're going to try and hit all of them, do a minute and a half of each one or something like that. I have to admit that there were a few songs that she was singing that I had never heard of, and I thought, are these some of her deeper tracks, or are these just does this just show how out of touch I am? But now the big news obviously was the fact that and how many seconds into the performance?
I saw the very beginning.
Did you
like literally when she's on top of the stadium?
Yeah, the floating platform.
Yeah.
Did you go? I think she's pregnant. How many did that thought ever cross your mind?
Well,
when you
she
were
looked
watching?
odd.
She looked a little well, yeah. The get up wasn't very flattering. So I'm sitting on the couch with my wife watching, and I think it hits us literally at the exact same time because we're watching. It might be 30
Did people
seconds.
not know she was pregnant?
No.
See, I have no idea about that world.
So she had not announced it.
So she wanted the halftime Super Bowl show.
I think this
to be
was her announcement. Yeah, which
that's weird.
It is a little strange, but
How does she keep it clean? All that, like keep it under wraps.
well, she just had a baby in May.
That's not that long ago.
Right, and now she's already pregnant
That
again.
didn't surprise me.
8 months later. Well, she should have known. She married a guy.
I meant more of the belly showing.
Well, but she had a baby in May, and now she's pregnant again in February. And I'm thinking, well, she should have known her husband's name is ASAP.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so I mean, things are going to happen quickly.
I don't understand how the world didn't know. Did she not post a TikTok?
I don't know
forever?
if she's performed since her last baby. I
That's
mean, after you have a
wild.
baby, you
Yeah,
typically
true.
take some time off, and this may have been her first performance back. But I think it was probably 30 seconds into
So she's
the performance.
probably the only performer who's ever been pregnant.
Absolutely. I can't imagine. I can't imagine Steven Tyler or Prince or anybody else who's been up there was pregnant during those performances. But my wife looked over at me, and I think it was probably the same time. She goes, I think she's pregnant. Is she pregnant?
I wonder how controlled the halftime show is in the perspective of the production. So I'm curious to see when she signed on to perform. Mm-hmm. And if she had to divulge, oh, I'm pregnant, and the NFL or whoever, like the other people that are negotiating with, it's like, well,
They may not.
how long?
I don't know. They may not have even known. I don't think anybody.
Well, that'd be hilarious if the Goodell guy from the NFL was like, we didn't even know.
No, I don't think they did. To be
didn't
honest with
know.
you, and really, is it any of their business?
So we put pregnant lady, 28 stories tall.
There you go. Now you're bringing up another point that I was going to bring up, but yeah, I don't think anybody knew.
That's fine.
And I don't think that's anybody's business, right? I mean, she can do whatever she wants.
It kind of should be if you're
now
the safety guy.
There you go.
working.
Now, from a legal standpoint and a safety standpoint, I did find it fairly interesting that she was hoisted 60 feet up in the air on these platforms, which, by the way, looked amazing.
it was all cool.
They were really, really cool. She did have a harness on to protect her in case she fell, but jeez.
I feel like if that platform went, she'd go with it.
Oh, if the whole platform
Yeah.
went? Well, I think it was attached to the platform. I think it was supposed to protect her from falling off.
Oh, yeah,
the
if she
platform.
slipped or something.
Yeah, if the whole platform went, I
That
think
would
she's
be
gone.
wild.
Yeah, it would have been wild. But all said and told, it was a fairly tame performance.
Well, she's pregnant.
There you go. And I think that's probably why. She couldn't do a full Rihanna
I get it.
performance
Yeah.
or anything like that. There were no wardrobe changes. She stayed in that same red outfit with all the men dressed in white, well, men and women dressed in white, gyrating and
It's
dancing
fine.
around them. I think there was some symbolism in there, with her being pregnant and a bunch of white.
I don't know. People look too deep into that.
Well, I don't know, man. Well, it's fine. Her performance was fine. I think a lot of people were critical of it because there wasn't much to it, and there was some vulgarity where she's thrusting and touching herself, which I could have done without. Pregnant or not, it's just that's just so overdone.
I mean, maybe ASAP Rocky's into that.
Well, he might be.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they got to bring it to the
funny.
Super Bowl halftime.
Well, I mean, the Super Bowl has so much controversy in it every year, I feel like, in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, you can take that all the way back to the Super Bowl with Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Did you watch that one? Do you
Yeah,
remember? seeing that?
I remember watching
I watched it live. It was
And
I'm
I'm
like
not gonna lie, I think this is before HD.
yeah, for the most part. I think that was 2000.
I remember when it happened, I couldn't really tell what I was looking at.
I think it was 2003. I saw it. It was like my JFK moment, man. I knew exactly where I was.
But I couldn't tell
when
what it
happened.
was. Like, I remember looking, I was like, is that her?
Yeah.
Is it? Like, what is that?
Well,
Because it had, like, this ring. Like
yeah,
like
she had it. It was
like,
decorated.
I mean, it was big.
Yeah, I was like,
Like the
a
earring
sun.
was big.
It was like a sun or
So
something.
it was one of those things I was like, oh, it's whatever.
Yeah,
And then I
mean-
think the next day, it was like, oh, she showed her she bared her breast. I was like, she did?
Yeah,
I thought it was like a tattoo or like a thing she had on the costume.
well, they
like,
cut away so quickly
Yeah.
too. It was like it didn't register for me either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember it very clearly. But that was obviously, I think from that point forward, they have been very, very.
Well, so I'm surprised. It's like, does she notify them? Hey, I'm pregnant.
I don't think that she. I mean, no. I'm going to say no. I obviously have no insider information.
I think there was
on
one
this, but
year
I'm gonna say
too
no.
where they were like, because Pepsi's been sponsoring it for I don't know how long, but there was a talk of, I think it was when Coldplay played, and the person who was supposed to be there backed out because I think the NFL was telling the performer that they had to pay to do it. They were trying something different where they were putting up for auction, like if you want to perform at the.
This sounds vaguely familiar, and I wouldn't put it past them because I think in the past they have done it for free. The performers don't get paid for the halftime performances. They benefit from all of the residual attention and sales that they get from after they perform. So I think most people.
Well,
do it
I'm
for
saying
free.
I think they
So
had
it
to
got
pay for the performance.
So I think they've gotten it to where they go, oh, now people know it's such a windfall that they can actually charge for it. That wouldn't surprise me. I don't.
Well, yeah,
know.
I think it was more the logic was they didn't want to have any control over the performance itself, and they got tired of bands saying, "Oh, this is what we want. This is what we want." It's like, all right, how about you just take over the production of it, and we'll charge you for, a slot, and then you pay for everything else. Like you pay for the fireworks, you pay for the stage, because they didn't. The NFL's not into stages,
Right.
So, I mean, to me, the Super Bowl's cool. I like the game, the controversial call at the end. I think that's funny. I think it's one of those things that unfortunately, that player is going to be hitting his head against the wall until the next season starts because he.
Yeah. So I don't know that we need to get into the X's and O's of the game itself. Overall, it was a great game.
Yeah.
It was close. Unfortunately, marred by some controversial calls. But you bring up an interesting point, and I think this can be said in just the Super Bowl or any game, but especially in the Super Bowl, is do you call a foul or a penalty in the last seconds of a close game, especially with so much on the line? And I always say yes, because I've heard people say, man, you just can't make that call there. You just can't. Look at how was it a penalty to the letter of the law? Yes, it was a hold.
I have no idea.
We're talking about a defensive hold here at the very end on Smith-Schuster. And was it technically? Yes, but I've heard people say you just can't make that call at that point in the game because it changes the outcome of the game. And I think, well,
what's the point of having rules?
Exactly. You can't have a separate set of rules for the first 58 minutes of the game. And the last two, we're going to change it. We're going to suddenly be a lot looser and then change it even further when you say, well, it's the Super Bowl. So I think it was the right call to make. It is just unfortunate that it happened at that point. For me, the biggest thing that stood out, because I think Kansas City still wins the game even if they don't have that penalty. I think their defense would have been good enough. They kick a field goal, they would have held them with some time left. The biggest thing that stood out to me was the running back McKinnon. I think that's his name, right? Yeah, McKinnon. He had the option to run into the end zone with probably about a minute left. They handed the ball off to him. He runs around. Jarrett McKinnon. He runs around, and he's got a clear path to the end zone. He runs right up to the end zone and stops. He doesn't score. He easily, untouched, he easily could have gotten in.
And he steps out of bounds.
No, he just took a knee.
Okay.
Took a knee. And the whole concept there was to take more time off the clock. So we're just going to milk the clock down to where there's no time left, kick a field goal. That way, Philadelphia either has no chance to get the ball back, or when they do, they have no time left, which is what ended up happening.
Yeah.
But to me, if I'm an NFL player, I dream about scoring touchdowns, especially dream about scoring a touchdown on the biggest stage, which is the Super Bowl. The restraint, the discipline that this guy had to take that into mind, because I'm sure they talked about it in the halftime, or not halftime, in the huddle, and said, hey, we're milking the clock. Run out of bounds. Don't, because as soon as he scores that touchdown, the time is going to stop. The play clock stops. We're milking the clock. Now, he had that clear line and still had the thought and the clarity of mind to take a knee. I don't think I could have done that. I would have said, Coach, I know that we talked about this. I'm running in. I'm doing my end zone dance. This is my opportunity. So I think that was something that stood out to me. Is I've never seen that much.
I mean, actually, I'm not going to lie.
Biggest stage.
That's an aspect of football I really don't like.
What aspect is that?
Where like you basically know the rules of the game and you manipulate the rules to where like you wouldn't make the normal decision.
Oh, well, and you can do that in any sport, I think. Well, not any sport with a clock, I think. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like when teams take a knee, and it's just like, it's so funny to me they haven't gotten to the point where it's like, all right, well, clearly they're going to run the clock. Let's just end the game. Like, well, no, let's watch this for another minute. And like,
you have to go through the formality of the quarterback taking a knee. Yeah, it is. Football does that probably more than any other sport.
And it happens often.
Well, the clock is an element of the game, and how you manage the clock is a big element. And I know coaches, some are better at it than others, because it really is a coaching thing. The players out there on the field, a lot of times aren't thinking the clock. The quarterback has to think about it a little bit more. So this really is a coaching decision, and I know that.
Well, I mean, there's another. What's that rule where you're doing a punt return? I think it's like you can step out of bounds, and it counts. Like if you touch the ball from out of bounds, it's considered that's where the ball's down.
Yeah, if you're talking about where the ball goes out of bounds, that's where it's considered out. Yeah, I think if I'm understanding you.
No, it's like the defensive player watched the ball and they can be out of bounds, and then they touch the ball from inbound. Like they go from out of bounds into bounds.
No,
it's some weird rule.
Yeah, no, I don't think if you go out of bounds, I don't think you're allowed to come back in and be an eligible player. Or if you do, you have to that's what it is. You have to reestablish yourself as a player, which means you have to have taken X number of steps back on the playing field during the clock.
But yeah, what if football sucks?
Yeah, it does. It's terrible.
Well,
no one's watching.
Let me ask you this: do you think the commercial stuff is it losing its momentum?
So I said that last week, that I thought, generally speaking, the commercials over time aren't as good as they used to be. I thought this year they were fine. They were
special.
Yeah, there was no. Yeah, and they were about like they have been over the last several years, and they were fine. Nothing really stood out to me.
I think the only time the commercial I would say I look forward to is when they do the movie stuff, because usually like they put really good movie trailers out where it's like finally we get like a good movie. And I didn't
like those the least, because I can see those anytime.
No, I meant more for like.
I want funny. Show me the funny.
No, I meant more for the spectacle. It's like, hey, we're going to release a trailer, but you know what? The Super Bowl's coming out. We're going to release it on the Super Bowl.
So I think that works if you've got a movie that's very, very anticipated, like the next Star Wars or something, and people are waiting, anticipating.
That's the only time I could see it.
But if it's just a movie that I'd never even heard of and it's coming out and they show the trailer, I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Show me the funny. I want funny. I think the one that stood out for me, though, I said earlier that I didn't think any of them did, but the one I think it was an older man dancing in front of some fountains, and I think it was for TurboTax.
Yeah.
And there were no words said. He just had some headphones on, and this older guy, he appeared to be older, just dancing in front of some fountains. I giggled. I laughed. I'm like, that's funny. That was it. And he just said something like, come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. And that was it. And he just danced, because I guess the idea there is someone else is doing his taxes for him. He's just out there enjoying himself and dancing in front of some fountains.
All right, fair enough.
That one was funny. I think there was the one with Bradley Cooper and his mom.
They were T-Mobile.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. The interaction between him and his mom, I think, was pretty funny. She's an interesting character. She had some funny glasses on, dressed kind of funny. Assuming that was his real mom, I'm guessing that it was. And then I think there was the Will Ferrell commercial for the GM electric vehicle. It was basically like a small movie with zombies. That was pretty funny. I don't know if you saw that one.
No,
or not. Yeah.
I didn't really see any commercials. I think the only commercial that was brought up on another show was with the announcement for that MGM thing in Las Vegas, the Sphere amphitheater. Because a lot of people were confused about the U2, the band U2, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's like a baby talking from a sphere, and people didn't really know what the commercial was all about.
I don't know if I saw that one. I must have missed that one.
But apparently, I was like, well, it's probably, you look at the bottom, and they're in Las Vegas, they built this Sphere amphitheater. It's like it's just a perfect circle, a perfect sphere.
Huh. Okay.
And they're opening it with U2. So U2 is going to be the first band to perform there.
Do you remember a few years ago the big hubbub, speaking of U2, where they actually put one of their songs into everybody's Apple?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, that was funny. So I guess they thought they were doing something good and offered a free song to everyone. So everybody who has
I think it was the album.
Was it the whole album? I thought it was just one song.
Album.
Regardless, one song or album. They thought that they were just going to be received so well. That was so funny. And the backlash they got, like, what are you doing putting this stuff in my playlist? Get this out of. I didn't order this.
Yeah, I think I personally was affected by that because for some reason, whenever like I would reset my iPod, it would always refer back to that song.
Oh, I bet that was somewhere in the algorithm. That was
it was
be
like,
the
I don't
first
want
song
to play
in the
this.
shuffle. That may have been part of the problem.
Yeah,
too.
like I don't want to play this song. Like I want to remove it. And
yeah, exactly. And maybe you couldn't remove it for X number of days. I don't remember, but boy, that backfired on them so bad. And they thought, no one can be possibly mad at this. We're giving them music for free. Like we don't even want your music. I'm not a big U2 fan. I mean, I got a couple of hits, but I know some people are so into them. It's not for me.
But yeah, I mean, it was a busy weekend with the Super Bowl.
It was. Did you see that this was the first time that 4 women had flown the jets over the fly over the game? It was 4 women pilots, and one of them was from Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So
I always feel like
that's
that
pretty
kind
cool.
of move is a dangerous move.
Flying jets or having...
Well, because like if you make a point of it, of like we're doing this because we made this diversity choice, or like we're trying to prop it up, but like that could backfire horribly, where like say something bad happened,
Oh, no.
and then like everyone's gonna be talking about it because 4 women were involved. You know, that kind of crap.
Yeah, no,
so
I
it's
get
like,
it. Yeah,
it's
but
kind
I'm
of like,
gonna
why would you want to promote that? Like, if anything goes bad, you're setting it backwards now.
I think, yeah.
So it's like it's not really. Why even say it? Why even say it?
Because it is a big deal, I
Well,
suppose.
is there only 4 women in the Navy or something? Like,
No, I think it was the first time that
in the Air
all
Force?
4 women pilots flew over a Super Bowl. Yeah.
like, do we know the other pilots on the past years?
Well, if something bad had happened, I don't think it would have. I think it would have been a big deal, no matter what, if they were male or female.
Well,
by
no,
the
I'm
way.
saying
It could have
no. But
backfired
what I'm
either
trying
way.
to tell you is like you see these promotions.
Well, it wasn't really promoted.
And
Well, I guess after.
It was,
the fact
no,
was
it
promoted.
literally, I remember this because they said it on television.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
during
this is
the fact.
Yeah, like this is the first time. I'm like, man, if something bad goes, like no one's gonna let this down.
Yeah.
Like no one can let this down, and it's kind of like especially in the entertainment industry. Like I remember that movie Bruse, and you see, I don't know if you've heard of Bruse. It has Billy Eichner in it.
No.
And he's a comedian. And he does like Billy on the Street and stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it was like one of the first bigger production gay movies. And then, but they kept emphasizing it was gay, and then it didn't do well, and so the promotion of it backfired on
I
them.
got you. I actually saw that movie in the lineup on the plane that I took
Yeah.
last week. It was one
And
of
I
the
bet it's
movie
good.
choices.
I bet it's a good movie.
I just
But
when you said that, I'm like, wait, I just saw
When
that.
you try to sell goods on, I would call it like a diversity thing. It's like people aren't gonna forget, and it's like, okay, now we're just gonna make fun of this movie because of how hard you sold it on this idea. But yeah, the 4 women thing, I still don't get it. Like, can you imagine being part of a company? It's like, hey, we got to do a promotion like this, and someone goes, why don't we get 4 women to fly over the Super Bowl? And they're like, okay, they don't even check to make sure this hasn't already happened. And I can totally see the Air Force like, yeah, it's already happened. It happened like in 1992. But we didn't really make a big deal of it then. It just, that's who we picked.
The one thing I did hear was the footage that they showed from inside the cockpit while they were flying was actually pre-recorded. That was not right then at the time when they were flying over. They had flown over earlier in the day, and they recorded it and showed it, and I know there was a big hubbub about that. And I'm like, I don't care. Fool me. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why we need jets flying over that stadium anyway.
Well, because we've got to flex our muscles right now. We got balloons all over the
Again-
place. We got to make sure that
again-
we can show.
Again, it
look
makes
what we've got.
if something bad goes, if something bad happens, it makes us look even more ridiculous. So, like, imagine they fly over, and then there's actually an aerial threat in the area, and they don't do anything about it. It's like, well, why were you there in the first place? So it's like, oh, we actually didn't arm the missiles before we took off. We don't actually have any firepower on these jets.
yeah.
I can totally see that. I could totally, it's like, oh, the closest jets are the jets that flew. No, they're actually not armed. So, like, we got to get other ones out there.
Yeah, and no balloons landed during halftime like I thought there might
Yeah.
be some aliens. Dang, I was really disappointed. That's why I was really watching. See if one of them suckers came down. And
Well, I think there was a game. I think it was a hockey game. Someone blew up a white balloon. It says that this isn't a spying camera or something like that, and flew it around the the hockey rink. But
Oh man, that's funny.
but yeah,
funny.
the Super Bowl, it's one of those things that it's so ingrained in our culture. It's kind of becoming a parody of itself in a way. It's the only thing that's been saving it, in my opinion, is the actual good football games.
There have been a couple good ones.
So it's been like, it's not just a blowout, and you have two great teams, so it's not like a fluke happened.
Right.
Like what I love is they always do at these games where you have one guy partially injured. And
Partially injured?
Well, the Mahomes thing.
Oh,
where
right.
it's like,
yeah,
we don't know if he's injured or not. Is he really injured? We don't really know, but he's such a trooper going out there because can you imagine being the second in command, like the second quarterback, and just going like, no one even likes me. Like they're playing this guy limping, and like they won't even consider putting me in.
You know when everybody likes the backup quarterback? When the starting quarterback is terrible. Then all of a sudden everybody's got to put so-and-so in, man. He would do better than this guy. Everybody loves the backup
that's
quarterback.
What I'm saying. It's so funny that the conversation, Mahomes is like, yeah, I can play. He's like, yeah, but if you get hit in your leg again, you probably can't play ever again. Well, we cannot trust Jody here. Jody cannot go in.
Why do we even have him on the roster?
Yeah, like I'm telling you, because
Somebody's got to hold the clipboard.
I forgot what the game was. The game before that, I actually watched that game when the Chiefs played. It was either the Bills or they played. Who did the Chiefs play to go to the Super Bowl? Cincinnati. Okay. And I remember watching, like, they show him. He's like, ugh.
Oh yeah, I thought he was done, man.
Yeah, and I was like, is this all for show? Like,
no, they showed that replay. It looked like that ankle was snapped.
Well,
I thought
yeah,
it was broken.
Well, I know, but then like when he didn't go out, he went out for a little bit and then came back on, and I'm like.
And then he got hurt again early on in the Super Bowl. Same type play, ankle turn. It wasn't much, but when you're already injured,
that's what I'm saying.
I thought, this is done.
I hate those kind of things.
He limped around the whole game, and
they didn't trust whoever the backup was at all.
No, they didn't. But no, it was a great game. Glad I watched.
Yeah.
So.
Feel sorry for all those Eagles fans.
Oh yeah, I feel terrible. Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Eagles, was crying beforehand during the national anthem. And boy,
powerful.
Yeah, I know.
It's Chris Stapleton. So
by the way, he rocked it. I think if I identify as Chris Stapleton, I think he sounds the way I wish I could sing. Oh my gosh, that was an awesome rendition. I don't know that I was brought to tears, but it was excellent. I'm just glad that Nick Sirianni was caught on camera crying because the memes afterwards.
Oh yeah,
delicious, love it. But that may have been one of my favorite. I think the all-time best. Is Whitney Houston?
Yeah,
that she rocked it with the Star Spangled Banner or the.
I don't really remember that. I don't really remember those things like.
Oh, but hers has been played over and over and over again. That's number one.
Okay.
But Stapleton, man, that was excellent. Because he's this country artist, big burly with the beard, but he's got this bluesy.
Well, he almost seems like he didn't really want to be
man.
there.
I think that's just his demeanor. Though.
Well,
he doesn't want to be anywhere, probably.
He's like, oh, you want me to play the guitar? You didn't tell me that. But all right, just give me a guitar.
This bluesy, smoky soul voice, but then he kind of mixed in a little bit of country and western with it. That guy's awesome.
Okay.
So, but anyways, well, do you wanna end episode number 2 right here, man?
Yeah, episode number 2. I guess what we will need to tell people is we're getting some guests lined up. So keep an eye out.
Exciting stuff.
Pay attention to our social media on YouTube, Facebook. It is the Audience of One show with Andrew and Dick.
And also live on the radio.
We're on podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts.
Supposedly
on Apple Podcasts.
I loaded it on there. I think they're doing a background check on me before they make sure.
Yeah, true.
I have not gotten any notification.
We gotta get on Spotify. Spotify's,
I did load the feed. Let's put it that way.
That's good.
That's
good.
They said we're evaluating.
And we will get the webpage up pretty soon. It's going to be irlonestar.com/AOO. It's an Audience of One.
Yep, and if you happen to be here local in the area, we're live on the air, 10 a.m., 106.1 and 104.5.
irlonestar.com. And, I'm looking forward to the next episode. And have a good week, Andrew.
Absolutely,
it's good to see you.
It's great. It's always great to see you. Till next time.
Then design would have it National Geographic or Magic with tailor-made status and plus flavor that's automatic.